Hello, 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 everybody. Today, as you can see on my Facebook, I have an option to express how I'm feeling, and today I'm feeling very angry. Frustrated, angry, annoyed at the state of the world, first and foremost, and the state of this unhealthy relationship that I'm about to talk about. So the unhealthy relationship that I want to talk about that needs fixing, that needs editing, that needs tweaking, that needs some attention, that needs to be changed, that needs to be addressed. It's the one and only relationship that truly, really matters at the end of your life. And it is the one with yourself. Because the relationship that you have with yourself, it is not healthy. It is not. And you're watching it probably agreeing with me, or probably, maybe you're one of the lucky ones, one of the few that has had the time to work on yourself, or had the family that help you to work on yourself and to know you wholeheartedly and wholly, and you don't need to work on yourself. But chances are you do. And the relationship that you have with yourself is not a healthy one, because the way you talk to yourself needs to change. The way that you treat yourself needs to change. The way that you think and refer to yourself needs to change. Because you can probably tell it ain't working. If it was working, you wouldn't be watching this right now. You would be living up in the mountains somewhere, happy and healthy and thriving. Whereas right now, you might be experiencing fear, anxiety, depression, feeling unworthy, feeling ashamed, embarrassed, guilt. And there's a reason for that. Because what is going on in the world right now, you might not believe it, but that's okay. I know I do, and to me, that's all that matters. And I know that there are many other people who do believe this. But what's going on in the world right now, it is an attack on us. It is an attack on the human mind that has been studied for decades. And now they understand all the things that I've just mentioned, right? All of the unhealthy parts of our mind. They understand all this, and that is how they're getting to all of us and pushing us and forcing us to do the very thing that many of us feel is not right. At the end of the day, all everybody wants is choice. When we're going through the battle, the struggles that of the mind, we do not feel like we have a choice. We're not even aware that there is a choice. Right now, a lot of people are not aware that there are choices because they're not given any choices. Because the only choice they have is do what I tell you to do, or lose everything you worked for so hard. What kind of a choice is that? That is not a choice at all. So that's one thing, okay? And everything that is being forced into our minds and forced down our throats is something that causes us to feel all of those things that I just said, right? Negative feelings and emotions that we don't want. And feeling guilt and shame is a form of coercion. And then that has a ripple effect on the body and the mind. We continue to work on ourselves, and more people were coming out of the shell. They were becoming the version of themselves that they wanted to. And then shit hit the fan. You can picture how messy that would get, right? And you can't clean that off entirely. So that unhealthy relationship is the one with yourself. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you is I just did a video, and I'm losing my voice. I just finished doing a video in my group with Bethany, and a lot of what I said a lot in there, and Bethany said a lot. And right now, I wasn't even planning to come live on my page, but I believe this is just so important that I just found myself pushing record and pushing live, and that's it. Where do I even begin? There's a lot that I can say. I have been studying the human mind and the human psyche and the mindset and what it takes for the mindset to be built and what it takes for the mindset to be shattered. And right now, everything that is being put out there is shattering the mind. And when I say everything, I don't actually mean everything, but a lot of the things that are being put out there is shattering the mind, and it's causing a very, very, very unhealthy relationship with the one person that matters, and that is yourself. That is the most unhealthiest relationship that we all have in our life, because the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we carry ourselves, the way that the things that we do to ourselves within this prison, if you will, how some people, it feels like a prison until you get out, right? Until you work on yourself, until you heal yourself, until you get to that point in place in your life where you start to feel whole. And it takes time to get there. And it takes practice. But it's not as hard as you believe it to be. And once you start working on yourself, that ripple effect will have a ripple effect everywhere, in every single part of your life. Everywhere. You will no longer be questioning things as much as you did before. You will just find yourself doing things and that are now aligning with you. All of that starts with knowing who you are, and really knowing who you are and understanding who you are, which will allow you to uncover your gifts and the things that will allow you to have that sense of fulfillment that I know you're longing for. We're all longing for that sense of fulfillment. Feeling fulfilled in everything that we do and how we show up and everything that we are and who we are. And it starts with doing a little bit of work on yourself. We all want, when we're in a relationship, right? A lot of you might have hopped on here hoping that I was going to tell you that unhealthy relationship that I'm talking about is going to be with your partner and they need to get their shit together. Or with your friend and they need to get their shit together. But I'm here telling you that you need to stop deflecting and stop telling everyone what they need to do and how they need to change, whether you're telling them out loud or in your mind. You need to stop thinking and having that mindset that in order for you to live a happy life, they need to change. And I hear this all the time, and I see this all the time in relationships, and that makes me so angry. On top of everything else that I've already mentioned that makes me so angry, this makes me really angry. But at the same time, that anger is the passion for me. I feel passionate because I know that eventually everyone will get what I'm about to say. And if you're not here yet, that's okay. Today and right now is not your time. Your time will come and it will sink in and you will get it and you will understand. But change starts with you. You want to see the world differently? You want to change the world? Change yourself. You want to change your relationship with your partner? Change yourself. Relationship with your friends and family? Change yourself. If you're going to sit around and wait for everybody else to change, thinking that there's nothing wrong with you, that you are perfect the way you are, which you are, but it needs a little bit of tweaking, right? Because right now, the reason why you would feel unhealthy and the reason why you torture yourself the way you do on the inside is because you do not really know who you are and what you really want. You have an idea of who you are. You have a little bit of understanding who you are. But all of that is based on what everybody else thinks and believes you should be, or who they think you are, which is not reality. Who you believe you are is not who you are. That's why it's so important. That's why I do what I do. And that's why it's so important to take the time to understand yourself in all the ways possible. So then you have a direction of where you're going towards who you want to be. And by working on yourself and healing yourself and learning a new language of how you want to talk to yourself and finding new, healthier ways of how you want to treat yourself, it will change everything. So if you want to change your relationship with anyone outside of yourself, you have to start here with yourself. You have to start taking ownership and responsibility for the things that you do and the things that you don't do without punishing yourself. Because punishment is it's sprinkled everywhere, right? The way that you're treating yourself is you're punishing yourself. Because the real you would not do that to yourself. You wouldn't talk to your best friend that way. You wouldn't treat your best friend that way. You wouldn't ignore your best friend. You wouldn't avoid your best friend. You would help your best friend. Right? I'm sure the answer would be yes. I treat my best friend as she is a queen or a king. And I treat them that way. Why can't you do that for yourself? That's a legitimate question. And that's a question I would really love for all of you to answer and help me understand the human psyche a little bit more. Because I understand a lot, but there is a lot more that all of us can learn. And I am thirsty for knowledge. And the way that I get to understand people more is by hearing what's coming up for them. Hearing what's coming up for you. Why? What makes your relationship with yourself unhealthiest? Identify one part that you could change. One part that you could shift a little bit that will allow you to start having a healthier relationship with yourself. I would love to hear that one part that it makes you the sickest about yourself. For me, since we're now in the mode for sharing, for me, it's not feeling. And it's always a feeling. And then I can identify the thought. Even though I have dialogue happening in my mind all the time and stories and I talk to myself, but when it comes to certain things, it's the feelings that I have to take time to identify what they're trying to tell me that my subconscious mind knows, but that consciously I'm not yet there. I'm not understanding what it's saying, right? What's happening on the inside of my world. So for me, it's always, I didn't do enough. I am not good enough. I don't deserve it. And I can't. I can't do it because I don't do enough. I'm not good enough. And I don't deserve it. That's why I can't. So these messages are they are the root of my self-punishment and the self-torture that I do and the self-pity and wallowing that I go through. It all leads down to those four main ones, right? So everything comes back to them. Not being enough, not feeling enough. Why? Why do we feel that way? Great question, Yana. The answer is simple. I want you to think of Matrix when he was getting, I think it was in the first one, when he wanted to learn how to fight, and the training was inserted, and then all of a sudden he was the best fighter there was. That's a program. That's a program that he received like this. Okay? Now, I want you to think about your whole entire life and your experiences, because Neo got to experience the fighting, and that's how he learned, like this, right? But in your life, this program, this program, which was planned, of course, many years ago, because when people started learning how they can control one another, this is what they did. So this is a program that has been programmed into you since birth. Your parents were not conscious of it. Your teachers were not conscious of it. Nobody was conscious of the program that they were giving you, that they were providing, that they were instilling in you. So the way that you are right now, the way that the relationship that you're having with yourself, that unhealthy relationship that you have with yourself, is not your fault. It's not your fault. But at the same time, I do want you to own it and say, okay, so up until this point, it wasn't my fault. I was living unconsciously, and I wasn't aware of the program that I was running back in my mind, that was running my whole entire life. That all of that, yes, it wasn't my fault. A lot of it still was. I'm not here to tell you to say every single thing that happened wasn't your fault, but the way that you show up, a lot of it is not. A lot of it is unconscious, and it was given to you. So, but starting from this point on, everything that happens, everything that you do your best to do it consciously. And that means pausing and thinking a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Just pause. Your parents told you probably, think before you speak, which is just really great advice. Essentially, that's what I want you to do. I want you to think before you speak. I want you to think before you do. I want you to think before you don't do something. Because thinking, as uncomfortable as it might feel for many people, is exactly the medicine that all of us need. Now, thinking, right now I can think of 3 different ways of how you can think that you would understand, that you can relate to. One of the ways that you would think is negatively, which is a piece of cake. Even though it doesn't feel good, it is familiar, and that is why we continue to do it. And it is a form of self-punishment that we continue to, the program that we continue to apply, because this is what we know best. And when you don't do something, you deserve a punishment, right? So negatively, and then thinking with no emotion, nothing. Just thinking, like kind of like a robotic. And then the third is thinking positively, which is one of the hardest for people to do. That's why a lot of people, when they are trying to think positively, they're actually in the middle. See how it works out? That's why a lot of people that are thinking positively, they end up in the middle, where they are just saying things robotically and hoping that there will be a feeling that will accompany it. But more often than not, it doesn't, until you practice it more and more and more and more. So there. Now, how do you, great, Yana. Thank you for all that information. Powerful, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. What do I do from here on? What do I do, right? You have unlimited options of what you can do. So I don't have unlimited time to go through all of them, but I am going to, I'll share a few, but I'll ask you one question. I want you to think back in your past when you weren't feeling so great and you perhaps were really hard on yourself or harsh with yourself. I want you to think about what is it that you did then that helps you to move through it. Okay? Because there's no going around it. Right? When you try to go around your feelings and emotions, usually you tend to experience a lot more pain and suffering. It's like walking through a bush of roses, trying to go around it. Instead, as opposed to when you go through something, you face it head on, and it's like Titanic. They said that if they didn't try to avoid the iceberg, if they went head on, that they would have survived. That's, a lesson from history that we can all apply. And there's a lot of lessons from history that we can apply. And that lesson was to go through something instead of trying to avoid it, because in trying to avoid it, you can end up doing a lot more damage. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to, lost my train of thought. I want you to take the time to identify, yes, what was working for you then, what got you through it, because that's a tool that you can put into your tool belt that will help you to work through anything. So here are some examples. Exercise. For me specifically, when I feel really anxious, it's push-ups, pumping my chest to get that out, or squats, right? So exercise, make sure you're eating well, because a lot of our problems actually do start in our gut, because not everything, but a lot of the things that we have been taught about nutrition are not entirely true. They are there to actually keep us sick, and feeling clouded and unclear. Okay, just one of the reasons. But making sure that you're eating well, sleeping well. You gotta check out your whole entire life and assess your days and your weeks and your months of your sleep, your nutrition, how much are you drinking, what are you drinking, how much exercise you're getting, where are you spending most of your time, who do you spend time with, because who you spend time with will determine who you will become. It is the truth. We become the average of the 5 friends we spend most of our time with. And a lot of people, everyone that has changed their friend circle at one point or another for a variety of reasons, they change them and they can see that they themselves change as well, right? If you spend time with unhealthy people, you become unhealthy, right? Physically, mentally, or emotionally unhealthy, you become that, because that becomes your feedback loop. If you spend time with successful people, you become the average of those successful people. And a lot of us, we have different definition of success, but the one that a lot of us, I feel like, would agree on is that our level of success is determined by how we make people around us feel. For me, that is my biggest measure of success, of how the people around me feel. And when they feel good, I feel successful. When they feel bad, I feel like I failed them because I have the knowledge and the tools to help them. But at the same time, I have enough experience to not give unsolicited advice, to not jump and fix the problem, to also trust everyone that they have everything they need to work through and overcome anything. Otherwise, this opportunity to overcome whatever it is would not be given. We're only given what we can handle. And believe you me, we can handle a lot more than we believe we can. So that's it. That is all. Share with me what other tools in your tool belt that you have, or maybe you just thought of and you want to add them into your tool belt, right? Or, you know, when you want to add things into your tool belt, you got to practice and see if it works for you or not. So I'd really love to hear that as well. So anyways, that is all for today. Unplanned life, which is my favorite, honestly, because then I just hop on and I'm just fired up. And today was anger, but as you noticed that I experience anger different than most people. I've trained my anger, and this is level 2 energy. I've trained the fighter in me. I trained the anger so I can control it, and I continue to practice that so that way I can show up as my best version, because I know who that is and I'm working towards that. And I do my best not to punish myself for being where I am and not being there yet, because we all have that unhealthy relationship with ourselves, and we all are, we want it resolved, we want it fixed, we want it to be perfect, which is normal. And I don't expect any more or any less, but it takes action to move us forward and closer to that version of ourselves that we want, that we're striving towards becoming. And it's not going to happen one day. It's not going to happen in 1 week. It's not going to happen in 1 year either. Unless you really, really dedicate yourself and work on yourself every single day with focus and clarity of where you're going, and you stick to it every single day. That's how you'll get there a lot quicker. But a lot of us don't want to deal with it, and we want to avoid it. And I wanted to use this one last example of how this unhealthy relationship that we have with ourselves, how, look at it this way. The unhealthy relationship that you have with yourself, where you are in pain, where you are in agony, when you are suffering, when you are hurting, you clearly have some wounds that are still open, that you have not dealt with. And it's hard to see them when they're inside, and it's easy to put them away and say, no, it's okay, I'm not going to deal with it, or maybe later. But I want you to think of it this way. If you had a really big cut on your arm and it was open, would you leave it? Would you ignore it? Or would you do everything in your power to deal with it and to fix it? Of course, Yana, I would fix it, right? Of course. And I would too, because it's easy to see. And then some of us would even cover that scar and say, I don't want to deal with that scar. I don't want everybody to see my scar, right? I don't want everybody to see my pain and suffering. I don't want anyone to know what I'm going through, because I got this. Because I am strong and I'm powerful, and you are. But when it hurts, it hurts. So just like that wound on your arm, that open wound that you would tend to and you would deal with, and you would find a professional to help you work with it and fix it, right? You can do the same thing with your insides. Just because they're not visible on the outside does not mean that they're there. And scars do stay behind after we heal ourselves. They do. It's called a memory. But that memory itself doesn't have to be a negative and a heavy one. It can be a powerful one where you look at anything in your life that you have went through and know. There's power in knowing. Not believe, believe is part of knowing, but really know that that served a powerful purpose in your life that has allowed you to become that person, that version of yourself that you are today. And one last thing, I promise, last thing is I want to remind you that when you are in that place, in that space, when you are suffering, it's difficult, if almost impossible, to see the value in that when you're there. And that's okay. You're not supposed to. Because what you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be experiencing it. You're supposed to be feeling it. You're supposed to be sitting with it. You're supposed to understand it because you're being forced to deal with that open wound. And you're not taking the time to look at that wound. So taking the time to look at that wound that you're feeling is valuable. It's very valuable. And that is when you start to heal with these things. And then you get closer to who you want to be. But you can't see it when you're there. So that's why time is valuable. Where a few days, weeks, months, years pass by, when you're in a little bit of a better place, hopefully, and if not, you're still able to then look at it, from a distance now, because you're not in there. You're not in there anymore. You're out of there. Because you're not experiencing anymore. You're somewhere else now. Even though you did your best to forget what you experienced, your body remembers. And your body screams, and you'll hear your heart flutter as well, or feel your heart flutter. So you need to give yourself the time to also walk away, and this is when you almost become like an observer. You get to see it from a distance. You get to feel it and experience from a distance. So yeah, that's it. That's all. Thank you. I know I can continue going and going and going. There's always a lot more that I can talk about and share. But a little bit at a time, small doses of Yana might be helpful. Too much? Might be too much. So that's all. Thank you very much. Let me know what was your biggest takeaway from this whole entire video. And please also share with somebody else that you know that will greatly benefit from this information. I would really appreciate it. And I have a feeling they might appreciate it as well. That's it. Thank you, guys. And until next time. Bye.